It doesn't really stay there, does it?
Ah! Let them come. There is one dwarf yet in Moria who still draws breath. Ah! Ah!
What's up? I'm Ryan the Cyber Hobbit, and welcome to my channel. I made Gimli's axes. In this video, I'm going to show you how.
Aruk Kazad! Kazad menu! Ah!
That was the last time, I promise. If you're new to my channel, if you can't tell, I'm a pretty big fan of Lord of the Rings collectibles, specifically the prop replicas that United Cutlery makes. I own one of their axes for Gimli, the bearded axe, but did you know that in the movies, Gimli actually has 5 axes? There's the walking axe, the bearded axe, 2 different throwing axes, and his famous battle axe. United Cutlery makes 3 of them, the bearded, battle, and walking axe, though I did hear they have plans to make the other 2 throwing axes eventually. Anyways, they no longer make the battle and the walking axe, so the only way to get them is to pay high markup on eBay or wherever. Since I've always wanted them for a long time, I decided I would give it a go and try to make not only both the battle and the walking axe, but the other 2 throwing axes as well. This video is actually only possible because I came across the Etsy store BigFredsCustoms that has a model kit that includes all 5 axes. They aren't perfectly accurate to the United Cutlery versions, but they are pretty close. Close enough for me. So, 3D printing. I just want to take a quick moment to say, you, yes you, listening to me talk right now, you can do 3D printing. It's not hard. Sure, it has its frustrating moments like anything. But nowadays printers are getting cheaper, faster, and more reliable than they were just literally a year ago. There's a small learning curve like anything, but it's fun. It's so much fun, and the possibilities are literally endless. Whether you go the FDM route that spits out 1 line at a time of plastic and slowly builds up an object, or you go the resin route like you see me doing here, which does require some more post-processing, but the end result speaks for itself and yields a very highly detailed print. Both routes are not hard. They're just not. I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you're on the fence for 3D printing, or maybe you just want a new hobby, or maybe you just want to save money on random things around your house, get a 3D printer. With this project, the 3D printing was actually the easy part. It took about a week to print all the pieces, but the goal here is to make 5 axes. If you're curious, it took about 4 bottles of resin in total, so that works out to roughly $100, depending on the brand you use. The next step is to clean up the prints and sand away any of the marks that are left behind from the supports. This isn't too difficult, but it does take a bit of time. Once the parts had been cleaned up, I then moved on to joining together the parts that need to be seamless. This is mainly the handles and the wood shaft sections of the axes. To join all the parts in this project, I'll be using plenty of JB plastic bonder. I think in total it was about 7 tubes of it. It's an incredibly strong bonder and will help to ensure things never come apart. Later on I'll be adding metal rods on the inside, but this will hold it together for now. After that I went through many different passes of adding different fillers and epoxy sculpt in all the gaps and then sanding away the excess. This was by far the most difficult part of this build, as the handles have lots of detail and making it seamless is pretty difficult, but I think I got it to a point that I was happy with. Alright, so here we go. I've got all the 5 individual pieces that I've worked on joining. The 3 in the middle here are mostly perfect. The line is completely gone. It's really these two on the outside that have this pattern that it's been much more difficult to make a seamless transition. You can still see a line mostly because I've sanded it back down, but once I do a top coat, theoretically this joining line should completely disappear. Or disappear enough that I'd be happy with it. Alright, so let's talk about paint. I'm going to be coating everything with some black base coats. I don't really think the brand matters all too much, but I went with Krylon. I'm going to be using a flat black and a gloss black. The gloss black is going to go on things that are going to be, like for instance, this is going to be gold, so that'll get a gloss black base coat. All the blades will get a gloss black base coat, and then this is going to be silver, so that will get one too. Most of the shiny things are going to be getting the gloss black. The other things like the handles, these like ones with the patterns on them, they're going to be getting just a flat black. So let's get to it. So I've gotten all the pieces all nice and primed. You can see our nice glossy black here, and then we have our flat black. The little seams of where these two pieces met together has basically gone away. I doubt you guys could even tell where those lines used to be from this shot. I step around over here. You can see I've been doing some experimenting with paints. One thing I've realized that I did was I sort of messed up, and this is one of the blades of the battle axe. And if you look at the United Cutlery blades, the battle axe that they made, this entire part that is not masked off has a texture. So I'm going to be attempting to add in that texture into the battle axe. So as you can see here, I have plenty of sort of different paints and ways of getting a metallic and axe looking blade. And although none of these are exactly this, I think this one is close enough. So this is actually a pewter, the pewter rub and buff that I've gone and added a black wash on top of it to sort of replicate some of that sort of texture that's on here. And I think that's good enough. Over here, you can see I've been doing some experimenting with gold because we have gold on all the pieces. And of these three that I tried, the European gold I think works the best for this, because it's maybe not as shiny, but I think it matches the bearded axe pretty well. It's almost like a duller and slight greenish hint of hue to it. It's not a perfect match, but it's enough that I think is good enough for me and for what we're doing here.
And because my audio messed up here, I'll continue the rest with a voice over the voiceover. For the battle axe, I tested two types of texturing spray paint, and ultimately settled on the one on the right you see here. That is a Rust-Oleum metallic texture spray paint. I really like the feeling it has when you touch it, and while it's not really at all like the United Cutlery battle axe, I think it's better than nothing. Rub and Buff is made from wax and metallic pigments, and like its name suggests, to apply it, you literally rub it on your object, and then buff it out to make it get really shiny. It's kind of magic, to be honest. It makes it easy to make something ancient with very little effort. For the head of the walking axe, I applied a Silverleaf Rub and Buff first, and then slowly went over and applied the same European gold on top of it. Mixing one on top of the other turned out to be a bigger effort than I thought it would be, but at least when it's placed next to the others, it matches. Next, I turned my attention to the blades. I repeated the same exact process of the gold and silver parts, but instead used the pewter Rub and Buff I mentioned earlier. Once I was happy with the level of shine and color, I then mixed up a black wash that is 25% black acrylic paint and 75% water, and moved on to adding a bit of weathering to the blades. The process is simple. Using a chip brush, I dab the wash all around the blade, wait an inconsistent amount of time, and then wipe away the rest. I did this several times to help really build up the look of dirt and grime across the blades, trying to make sure to keep the cutting edge a little cleaner than the rest. After the blades were done, I then started to think about the wooden parts and handles. Because again, I was unsure the best approach, I bought a variety of Angelus leather paints and did some experimenting first before painting the actual pieces. One thing I wanted to do was attempt to create a fake wood-like pattern on all the flat handles. To do that, I used this wood grain tool that I bought online. It has a rubber textured surface that you use to drag through paint to make it look like wood. By the way, if you're curious, I 3D printed one of these first, but it didn't work at all because I printed it in a hard plastic. I found it needs to be flexible to truly work. Before using the tool though, for all the pieces that have a flat edge to them, I coated it in a rich brown leather paint and let it completely dry. Then, having plenty of paper towels on standby, I would first quickly apply a wet coat of the black leather paint, then with the wood grain tool, starting at one side, drag through the paint while slightly rotating it to create something that sort of looks like a pattern of wood. Not all passes were good, and I found myself wiping everything off and starting over plenty of times, but eventually I found something that I thought looked decent. I didn't do it to all four sides of the piece, only two on opposite sides, because I didn't think the grains would line up well if it had it on all four. On the other two sides, I simply dragged the chip brush through the black paint to at least give some texture and match the color. Since the end goal is to match the bearded axe, the flat wooden parts needed to be much darker, so I then went over each piece a couple of times with a heavier black wash to make the grain lines much more subtle. For the handles with the braided texture, I mixed up a few of the leather paints to get a tone that I thought matched the bearded axe, and applied a single base coat. Then I went over the handles again with a couple of rounds of a black wash to make them even darker. Once all the parts were finally painted, I could finally get on to the most fun part, the assembly. Like I mentioned before, to give these some much needed strength, I'll be running metal rods through them. Again, to ensure these axes stay together, I'll be using plenty of J&B weld like I mentioned earlier. The J&B weld takes 45 minutes to set, so as excited as I took my time and let each piece fully cure before moving to the next. I also used this curing window to make sure to clean up any of the excess that got pushed through the cracks. Once the axes were put together, I went over them one last time with another round of a black wash to help blend everything together, and then I was finally done.
So I'm really happy with how these turned out. What do you think? They are by no means perfect, and there are a lot of things I would do differently next time, but I'm very proud of them. I've always wanted to have these axes, and now I do. If you're curious, I do plan on making a very large wall mount for them, all 5 to sit on. It'll be a 3D printed thing. I've already made the design in Tinkercad. More than likely it'll have LED lights, because you know me. Maybe sound if I get a little carried away with it. If you guys haven't figured it out, throughout this video, I made 5 axes. I only needed 4. I made 5 because I made an extra one of these. I made an extra throwing axe. I did that because I planned on giving one of these axes away. So yes, for my 3,000 subscriber milestone, doing a giveaway. You're gonna have 3 prizes. One of these is the throwing axe. 2 other prizes will be United Cutlery items. I already have the items, and I'm not going to tell you what they are because maybe it makes it more fun that way for you to figure it out on the fly. Here's one of them. That's the only hint I'm giving you. How do you enter the giveaway? You need to, I guess, go and rewatch this video and pay closer attention and ignore the fool that took. That's all I'm gonna say. You have until next Monday, that's the 11th, I believe, to enter the giveaway. I'm not going to give you any instructions because you have to figure this one out for yourself. But next Monday, I'll be making a video announcing the winners. There will be 3 winners. So, yeah, best of luck to you. If you enjoyed this video, guys, please hit that like button, or maybe even subscribe. Or if you enjoyed the video and watched this entirely and made it this far, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. That pretty much is it. Until next time, bye-bye.